Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Podium Picks presented by Working Against Gravity. I'm Sean Woodland with Tommy Marquez. We are in different locations today, but we're going to get this thing done anyway. Today, Tommy, this is a good one. You came up with this one. We're doing, we're going back to the pop culture world since we did cross it last week. These are our Podium Picks for childhood toys.
Oh, man.
This was very stressful and very difficult.
This was really tough. And I think it's great because it helps you kind of relive that decade and age which you grow. And it will also tell you how old we are based on the toys and things that we chose to associate ourselves with.
Sticking a hoop.
Yeah. Yeah.
Might be one of mine.
Just a wicker ring and a stick, just rolling it.
The ball in the pack, you know.
Okay.
Classics.
Yeah.
So yes, I think people are going to get a very diverse set of toys here because Tommy and I grew up in different decades. I'm a child of the late 70s, 80s, and Tommy's a 90s kids, and so this is going to be really good. I think you started last time, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah, I did start last time.
Okay, so I will start with my Spirit of the Games and my Dark Horse, and we'll start with Spirit of the Games. So. My Spirit of the Games, because this is something that I received multiple times and it never got old. This is a Nerf Football.
Yes.
You get when you unwrap a brand new Nerf Football that's never been used, you know how it's got that feel and it's just got the right consistency to it, and that plastic coating they put on it is like all nice and sticky, and it's beautiful. It just has a smell, a texture, everything to it. And you go out and you throw that thing around, and then it lands in the water once, and then it's done. You know?
So it soaks up all of it.
I can remember so many times as a kid, like squishing that thing with your shoe or sitting on it trying to wring it out of the water, and then your dog would get a hold of it and chew it up. But that's why I got so many, and it never got old. I always loved buying me a brand new Nerf Football. I was never a fan of the ones that they started like spiraling them, and they put the tail on them or the whistle. Never wanted any of those. I thought that was kind of cheating. I just wanted a good old two-toned Nerf Football with a
you couldn't see my hands, but off screen I was going like this to like mimic the squishiness of a Nerf football. You could make the best one-handed grabs and oh man, there like any sense of like actual football, like the points of pressure on carrying it went out the window because you could just squeeze it.
Yeah, you didn't learn good fundamentals when you were a child playing with a Nerf Football, but I loved unwrapping those things, and they were the best. So Nerf Football gets my Spirit of the Games. I'm going to stay in the football realm for my Dark Horse, and I don't know if a lot of our listeners or viewers might know what this is.
Ooh.
But my Dark Horse is electric football. So those of you who have never played electric football, when you were, when I was 7, 8 years old, it looked like the coolest thing in the world. So you had this. It was a field. So it's metal. It's like thin. I don't know if it's tin, but it's like metal that you play on, and it has a motor underneath it that vibrates the field, and then you get these little men, that have these stands on them, and so you're supposed to be able to adjust the stands. And in a certain way, you can make them move a certain way. Now, this game they still have a Super Bowl for this, and I covered it one time when it was in Jacksonville. They're still grown men who play this game. And as a kid, you thought this was awesome. And I remember I'd spend all these time, setting up these great formations and these plays, and this guy's going to go here, and he's going to block, and this and all that. And then you turn the thing on, and all they do is vibrate and just move in random directions. Like it's really this. It looks a lot better than it turns out to be. But I played this all the time with my dad. I can remember getting if you wanted to throw the ball, you had the little quarterback who was yellow, and you put the you would lose the foam football after 5 minutes because you'd throw it once and it would wind up in your shag carpet. You could never find it. But it was this little yellow, he was a yellow guy, and you had a handle on him. You would hold it, and you would put the football on his throwing arm, and you would pull it back and fling it. And that's how you pass the ball. You would have to hit the guy. Very low tech, but it taught me a lot about, just the rules of football. It taught me a lot about, how to set up theoretically plays, but honestly, go online and watch people play this, and it's just it vibrates, and it just it would just be this huge massive plastic just to kind of moving down the field. Didn't look anything like football, but it was fun just looking at put the numbers on the players, and I remember ordering different teams. I had the NFC West, the old NFC West, when it was the Rams, the Falcons, the Saints, and the 49ers. I had all those teams. and I had the Steelers, and I think I had the Cowboys too, because it would always come with the year's prior Super Bowl when you would buy it.
Okay, yeah.
With those teams. So electric football, man, it was time well spent, but so much effort for so little payoff.
I have no idea what that is, but I learned so much about the Woodland household just by the fact that you mentioned shag carpet.
We had brown shag carpet in my house I grew up in. And literally you would fling that football and it'd go like 7 feet because you'd put way too much torque on it, and then your football was gone. And so I can't tell you how many times we just wound up playing with like a little wadded up spitball that you would just jam in the running back's hand. So, but it was great. I have a lot of fond memories of electric football.
Yep, played in the brown shag carpet of your Burbank bungalow back in the early 80s.
You're growing up in Chicago, California, there on my brown shag carpet.
Oh, all right. So I had my 5. I haven't figured out my top 3, but I do have my Spirit of the Games and my dark horse.
Okay.
So I'll start with my dark horse.
Okay.
And it was a Super Soaker water gun.
Oh, those are great. See, that was after my time.
Yep. So, I mean, if you, there is no better way to build a military-industrial complex into the youth of America than give them a bunch of squirt guns that resemble live weapons.
We had these things called Entertech squirt guns, and they looked like it was like an Uzi, and they had like an AK, and it was black, and you filled the water up in the clip and put it in. I mean, these things looked real.
Oh wow.
Battery operated. Yeah, Pat Sherwood and I used to talk about those all the time. Like, we still get those, but anyway, go ahead with the Super Soaker.
And I've never, and then I always remember, like summertime came around, and usually you left your Super Soaker in the garage or in the backyard somewhere, so it had gotten all yucky, so you had to either rinse it out, hopefully your dad could kind of clean it, or you got a new one and maybe you got an upgrade. And then I remember they came out with the one that had a backpack that was basically cheating. It had a backpack that its only purpose was to hold water. So you basically had an unlimited supply, but your mobility was severely limited in your neighborhood games of Squirt Gun Wars.
You're like Jesse Ventura in Predator with that helicopter gun.
Exactly. I was going to say, I've never fired a chain gun or a flamethrower, but I'd imagine I'd know what the pure rush of it might have been based on shooting that Super Soaker from back in the day. All right. And so my Spirit at the Games, this is going to be a little outside the box.
All right.
A set of pots and a wooden spoon.
Okay. All right.
So, and I'll explain. There's a photo somewhere in my parents' photo albums of a young Tommy, potentially sporting, the old Mississippi mud flap, otherwise known as a Camaro crash, the Moulet, a Camaro crash helmet. Our friends up north call it a Canadian passport. Of me sitting with a mullet, sitting on the floor of our old house with a bunch of pots and pans scattered across the floor, and me holding the big old wooden spoon, and I'm just banging away like Neil Peart during the middle of a drum solo in a live Rush concert.
I'm sure your parents enjoyed every second of that.
and it would drive my parents nuts. My parents used to joke that they wouldn't ever want to buy me toys because I'd play with the toy for a little bit, especially early on, and then I'd just go back to just banging on the drums on these pots and pans. And my brother was kind of in a similar vein, and it's amazing that I didn't turn out to be a musician the way I just wailed on those things.
Hey, well, that's didn't see that one coming. That's a good one.
A little outside, but
you could have also gone with refrigerator box, or appliance box. Anytime my parents got a new appliance, that box was a fort. It was all kinds of stuff for me. It was great.
A rocket ship. It was the horse you rode into town on when you played cops and robbers. It was, it was, a gigantic cardboard box was fantastic.
Yeah, that's a really good one too.
Okay. All right.
Now we're getting to the podium, and I'm going to start with third place. So there's going to be, when I was growing up, there were what I would say the big 3 of toys genres, and I'm going to pick from all 3 of them. So when I'm done with this, you'll understand what I think the big 3 of my childhood were. So third place for me, and when I thought back on this, I really just had to go with the stuff that immediately popped in my head, because I felt like if I had to think about it for a while, then it wasn't like a top toy. So the ones that just first popped into my head was Optimus Prime, the Transformer. So Transformers were great toys when you were younger. The problem was it took forever sometimes to transform them. You know, like you were like, okay, I'm a plane, and now give me a second. Pop that in. Okay, thing. Okay, that goes up here, and all right, and now I'm a robot. It wasn't anything like the cartoon. No cool sound effects. It was just a lot of clicking and frustration. But I got Optimus Prime, and he was awesome because it was like really fast to transform him, and he also came with a cool trailer that you would hook on, and that would open up into some sort of Transformers base. And he had the cool rifle, and he was by far what I thought, other than Soundwave, probably who I don't think I had, but yeah, Optimus Prime, man, that was hours of fun right there. It's like if you had him, it didn't matter. If you didn't even have any other Transformers, you could just play with that by yourself and entertain yourself for a while. So that was a big get when I was a kid. Optimus Prime,
the leader of the Autobots, man.
Yeah,
it's kind of the trump card playing with other kids. Like this is the guy.
Yeah,
and transforming him is like the early 1980s version of a loading bar for like a screen now. It's like, hold on.
It is.
Yeah, it's gonna take a second.
The cartoon, it was the cool sound effect, and they were playing right, or a car right to a robot. And you're like, no, that's not how this works. I got a thing and pop that out and move that here. And get his rifle, put it in his hand. Okay, stand him up. Now we're good.
Yeah. Okay. All right. My third place is actually something that you mentioned earlier that you weren't a fan of.
Okay.
And it is a Vortex Whistler football.
Oh, okay. See, after my time.
Yes. So it was a football that had a smaller forward piece. It had a long tail, and it had this little whistle hole into it. So not only could you throw an excellent spiral and just throw darts left and right, you had to let people everyone in the neighborhood you were doing it too, because you could hear that whistle from a country mile away as the crow flies.
Yep.
And honestly, I remember there being a commercial where John Elway
yes, I remember that,
and he threw it out of the stadium. Now I maintain that being at Mile High, the air was a little bit thinner, so it was kind of like playing with the juiced ball. But still, every time you threw that thing, you felt like Uncle Rico. You could throw that football over the mountains. It was awesome because it was like nothing. It was such a power move. Like if you had a better arm than your buddy, so he like threw it to you. You caught it and you're like, back up. You gave him like that. No, back up. And they keep going. You're like, nope, keep going, keep going. And they kind of give you the look like, really? You're like, take another step back, and then just huck a moonshot, like, all the way across the church parking lot that was around the corner from us that we used to play growing up. And that made me feel like I was a way better football player than I ever actually was. Mm-hmm. So maybe in a sick, twisted way, it gave me a false sense of hope. But still, I loved it.
You could have like 4 attempts, 3 completions, and 700 yards passing.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was a good one. My friend of mine had one of those in college. I don't think it had the tail on it, but it had the whistle on it. And we would just go out when we were bored to the soccer field and throw that thing the whole length of the field with no effort whatsoever. Yeah, that's a juiced ball, like you said. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to go now to my second of the big 3 toy genres from when I was growing up. And this was close. It was close between 2 and 1. But my number 2 is going to be the original Star Wars Millennium Falcon.
Ooh.
And I think I got it for Christmas one year, and I think I was 7 maybe, but for us, like that's a pretty big, as an adult now, it's not that big, but it's a 7-year-old kid. The thing was massive, and you had to hold it with 2 hands if you wanted to play with it. And it had this piece on the back of the ship that popped off, and then you could put the figures in there, and they could play Dejarik or just hang out, do whatever. It had the ramp, and it had like the turret that made noise, and it was battery operated, so you press the button, it would make all kinds of cool noises, and it was just like you could pretend it was flying around, or you could just like put it on the ground and play with it, and you could put Han and Chewie in the cockpit. I remember getting that thing and I would just look at it as a kid. Like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. The Millennium Falcon. It's so awesome. And I had, I was a big Star Wars fan growing up, still am, obviously, but the Millennium Falcon is just one that sticks out as kind of the crown jewel of my Star Wars toys. The one I always wanted but never got was the AT-AT Walker. I asked for that for like multiple, probably into my 20s. I asked for that thing and never got it.
And Sheena, if you're listening.
Yeah, and I've already been no more Star Wars stuff in the house. That law's been laid down, and she's been very generous with the amount of stuff I already have, so I'm not going to push that. But yeah, I remember I was always envious of the kids who were able to get the walker, but the Millennium Falcon that was something fun.
Oh man, that's epic. I believe I had an older cousin that had one of the walkers growing up.
Yeah,
but never let me play with it because I was prone to breaking things.
Yeah,
rightfully so. Oh, I also had a very close 1-2 combination. So this one came from one of my favorite cartoons, which eventually became a movie franchise and everything. Is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, specifically their Talking Turtles action figure line.
Okay.
So these came out in 1991. So I was 5 years old when they first came out. So these were action figures that, on top of being fully functional, had a speaker embedded in their shell that looked like a New York City sewer manhole cover. Because remember, they lived down in the sewers, which I don't think you can get away with now. And when you inserted what was essentially a glorified zip tie into the back and you ripped it out, it caused him to talk like, say phrases like Cowabunga dude, or take that shredder, or your old goldfish Jimmy wasn't actually dead. He says hi, by the way, like, funny things. And I have a feeling that all it was really training an entire generation of young men to have this sort of like Pavlovian cathartic release 40 years down the line when they eventually have to pull start a lawnmower and get that sound that came bellowing out. Oh man, I think it was I'm sure my parents were super happy to be able to give it to me, but they also immediately regretted it when I was just running around just ripping that thing and just making them say all these different catchphrases over and over again. Like, I loved it because, when you're playing with your friends, you'd like get ready and like, oh, hold on, and then, go right into it. And oh man, I wore those things out. I can't tell you. And then they eventually started coming out with, I can't remember if they actually made an upgrade to it where you could like get a different strip and it would say something different. But it was the amount of creativity in 91 that they had to be able to get your favorite action figure to talk just blew my mind.
So I have two questions about this. The first, were these like your standard, kind of like 6-inch action figures that the Ninja Turtles were, or were they bigger than that?
I think they were a little bit bigger, about 6, maybe 8 inches, maybe a little bit beefier, just so that you could have the mechanism for but they were, I wouldn't say they were oversized, like too much bigger, but then they were like,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, they were good. They were good sized.
So the second question is, which character was your favorite?
Oh, I was Michelangelo all the way. And it's funny because I think they just like tried to figure out the 4 personality types of men. And it was like, there's like the grouchy, like grump, which was Raphael. There's like the nerdy, like, super intelligent guy who was Donatello. They had like the wild free swinging goofball that was Michelangelo. And then Leonardo was of course the leader, like the guy that's eventually going to enroll in West Point and, serve his country well kind of guy.
Okay.
But
and
orange was my favorite color too. So I immediately went to Michelangelo. I was the weird kid that didn't like blue or green or red and liked orange. So,
okay. That's a good one. I think I actually had a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle action figure. I think I bought one after the movie came out.
Like, even just thinking about it, the premise of it, like, it had to be an 80s hangover, right? Like,
oh yeah,
four turtles like mutated by ooze that live in a sewer, coached by like a overgrown rat, and they're fighting some like mystic street thug covered in metal scraps.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and they
love it.
Yeah,
let's do it.
Yeah. What?
Greenlit.
Yeah, exactly. It's the 80s. Let's go.
No, who cares? We'll sell toys. All right. So my number one, and this is now the third of the big 3. So we have Transformers, we have Star Wars, and then the number one. And I wasn't a big a fan of G.I. Joe as I was of Star Wars, but the toys were infinitely better because you could move the action figures. They had the arms that you could bend. They came with like cool accessories. I remember Snake Eyes came with a wolf. Storm Shadow had the swords that you could put in, and there were ninjas, and that was awesome. And the vehicles were fantastic. So my favorite, and I remember getting this for Christmas because I distinctly remember opening it. This was the G.I. Joe Sky Striker, which was essentially their F-14 fighter jet. And this thing was legit. Like it had detachable Sidewinder missiles. It had like a bomb you could stick on there. It had the wings that swept back. I mean, it looked basically like something Tom Cruise would have flown in Top Gun. And I love this thing. I mean, it was just I just remember the same thing with the Millennium Falcon. Just looking at it, like, this is the coolest thing. I would just like pop missiles off and put them back on just to be like, this. Look at this is unbelievable. It's amazing. You can do all this stuff. And I had friends who had, they had GI Joe stuff, and then we'd get together and bring all our stuff together. And in fact, this is a funny little story. When I was a kid, I think I was, how old was I? 12, maybe 11. You know how they would run cartoons after school on your local station. So GI Joe was on one of the local stations in Sacramento. I think it was it channel? I think it was channel 31. I don't even know if that exists anymore. And they had channel. You would turn the dial. They had this contest, and it was during like a special 5-part. It was like a 5-episode contiguous story that GI Joe had, and they had a contest, and it was like be the hero of the day. And what you did was that you wrote your name and address and everything, contact information on a postcard, and you would put your friend's name as well, and then you mail it in to enter. And if you won, like you and your best friend got like a bunch of free stuff. So I put my brother's name down and I won.
Whoa.
I won. So that he and we get these 2 boxes that were, I mean, we got a ton of stuff, like action figures, vehicles. It was one of the greatest days of my life. Because remember how you would always, when you played, you always had like one of everything. You're like, I wish I had another tank, or I wish I had another, like, it'd be cool to have like a fleet. Well, we did. We had like a couple of the same things, and I didn't get another Sky Striker, but that thing was just, it was like, what made it so cool is that it was so real. It looked so good. And then came with a figure that would pop in there. And I had hours of fun with that. And G.I. Joe just set the standard for toys if you were a kid of the 80s.
Oh my gosh. I just pictured the reaction you and your brother got when they opened up the box, like Chewbacca masks.
Dude, that was what it was like. It was great.
And I feel like the build quality of toys back then, like you can't get away with like using real metal and things like that because some helicopter kid is going to accidentally swallow it or stick it up his nose. But yeah, oh man. I had a GI Joe doll that was actually one of the larger ones.
Yeah.
But I remember it having like fully articulated elbows and stuff like that. And my cousin would always like, oh, your GI Joe has to date my Barbie, and I'm like, like, way to be progressive. It's 2020. Come on. My top one, and this was really close. And it's very simple too, and these toys are still very popular to this day.
Right.
They have a different name now for the description, but Hot Wheels color changers.
Colors, I remember those. That's the ones you went through the water, right? And they changed. Yes. Yeah, that was awesome.
Yep. They're now called Hot Wheels color shifters. I'll be honest, I'm not sure what like post-70s Grateful Dead roadie designed these cars, but they were the same quality Hot Wheels design with like metal and everything like that. But when you put them through different temperatured water, they would start to like shift and morph colors. I remember specifically, and I couldn't pronounce them. I couldn't pronounce it early on. So I would always call it my color because I was like, it's one color and it's another color. So I'm just going to call it my color. And it was the nickname for it growing up. But I had this old school Volkswagen Beetle that would change to orange. And it was like absolutely mesmerizing to watch. And I refused to take a bath unless I had it with me. And so like every night, like a 5-year-old Hunter S. Thompson, I'd like climb into my bath and go wild staring at all these color changes with my Hot Wheels. So, and I loved it. And it was, I mean, that was like a way to like get kids like obsessed with science. Like, oh, what is the science behind that? But instead I went with CrossFit.
Did you have the track that you could put together and then you make moves? Have you ever, I mean, those things, I'm surprised they still make them because those things make formidable weapons.
Oh my God.
Been hit with what, like a piece of Hot Wheel track?
Oh,
it's like a double under whip.
That just brought back some distinct memories of like, because the Hot Wheel track, it's like plastic and it has some flop to it, but it has like just enough of an edge on the outside where, so the car will kind of stay on the track. And I remember they had the little connectors in between that would connect pieces of track together. And, you could get, this is just a sign of the times, right? Like we'd get into like track battles in the back, and then like if you really got them good, you'd flip it upside down so the little edges were the only things that made contact. So it was like
I can still feel that sting.
But there was such a gratifying snap when you got one of your buddies with it.
And you wouldn't build them like every kid did the same thing. They give this layout. Yeah, you do the loop, and you just build this huge jump, and you put a bunch of stuff in front of it and crash it through it. That's essentially all you ever did. Yeah.
We're just doing Evel Knievel style. Forget the loop. We're gonna launch it.
Exactly. We're just gonna go as far as we can here. We're not going for accuracy. We're just going for distance. Oh man, Hot Wheel tracks were great. That's actually one that didn't make my. I had written down another one that I thought of that didn't make mine, and I want to hear yours. Was Voltron.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Voltron was great. The only problem was like you really couldn't do much. You had these cool things, you put them together, and then there was no sort of enemy or adversary for Voltron. It was just you kind of just played with Voltron.
Yeah, I have a few actually. So here's some of the lists that I have that didn't make it. So I have my WWE Wrastlin Buddy.
Oh man, those I had. Yes, okay. I didn't have the buddies, but I had the original like big rubber figures. Those were awesome.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I had like the stuffed wrestling buddy. I think I had the Ultimate Warrior, and oh my god, I can't tell you how many like suplexes and power bombs I put that thing through. And then my dad would come in and join in, and like we used to do the Doomsday device with my dad would put it up on his shoulders and I'd get up on the couch and like, it was fantastic.
That's great.
Let's see. Power balls, which I think were more of like the early 90s, like, Voltron type kind of like.
What were they again?
Power Rangers.
Oh, Power. Yeah.
Okay. So a yo-yo, so a Yomega, Fireball, and Raider. So right around 11 or 12 in elementary school, like you really hot again, and it went from having the classic Duncan like butterfly yo-yo to having like ball bearings and things like that that could make it spin forever. And I'll never forget. Like I remember getting really good at it, and then I broke my arm in 12th and when I was 12 in 6th grade. Right before baseball season, and my dad was all mad because I was supposed to be one of our like main pitchers, but I kept using the yo-yo with my cast on, and the doctor said that the actual movement of the yo-yo helped me heal faster because I completely healed like 2.5 weeks ahead of schedule, and only missed one baseball game or a couple baseball games, and the doctor was like, "Wow, that using that yo-yo like helped fix you." So that was a good one. Let's see.
You have a pretty extensive list. There's some good ones on here. The wrestling thing I should have that didn't come immediately to mind, but I had hours of fun with those too.
Yeah. GAC, which is like a Nickelodeon thing, but like that kind of lost its favor with me pretty quick. Nerf Guns, which are awesome, which that was kind of the same thing as like Super Soakers.
Yeah.
Street Sharks, which is like
I remember those. They were like cars but sharks.
Yeah, and like there was a cartoon where it was like they're basically like the shark version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Tamagotchi, which was like really hot for a while. It was like this little like, and then honestly, this one probably could have made my list. Was Pogs.
Yeah, that was way after my time too. That phenomenon hit.
I remember you were just like filling up sleeves of Pogs, and you're playing like with slammers and stuff. And it was like if you wanted to play for slammers, because if you lost whatever was on the field, and that was like a big deal. I remember it was like the equivalent of like a street fight back in the day. We're like, oh, they're playing for slammers. And I remember one time I had this my beloved like green plastic slammer that was like had this like gold foil on it, and I was like, that's my gem. Everything with it. This kid was like, I think it was Steven Satterfield, maybe. He was like, a little bit of a bully back in the day. He goes, "Hey, you want to play for Slammers?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "All right, let's play." And I put mine. We like flipped to see who goes first, and I put mine down. And he pulls out this metal slammer, which like nobody had at the time. No. It just goes wham and cracks my slammer in half. And he's like, "Oh, guess I win." And I was like devastated. And I remember. And I remember he ended up getting this really nice plastic slammer. And my dad worked for a machine shop back then. And he goes, I'm like, I need help to get revenge. So he helped machine me this metal slammer that was basically like a solid steel disc. Like that was like
a mini version of Cap's shield is what you're saying.
Exactly. It was like a 4-inch diameter and it was like 3 inches thick. And he polished the edges and made it nice. So like, you know, it was like, it looked like a real slammer. And I remember I had it in my backpack and it was like right before class. And I'm like, hey, Steven, like, let's play another round of slammers. I want to play again. He's like, oh, okay. And we flipped and I got to slam first. And he's like, all right. He's like, I'll use my plastic one this time, my good plastic one. I'm like, all right, that's fine.
You do that.
I pull Cap's shield out of my backpack and just like, just disintegrated it.
Oh man.
And like put it back. And that was like, that's karma for you. And walked into class. It was like my proudest moment in elementary school.
That is fantastic. I remember Pogs were huge, man.
Yeah. It was crazy. Like, I remember like because you had like the paper Pogs and then you had like the slammers and people were just filling up. Like, I remember I got like a 6-foot tube Pog tube that it was just a container for it to like fill it up. And it was like a status symbol if you could like fill up a Pog container for some reason. And I remember all of a sudden they just stopped being cool. And then all these people were like, well, now I have this freaking 5-foot Pog container with all these paper discs in it. What do I do with it now?
It'll come back.
Yep.
It'll come back.
One of these days.
All right. That was fun, man. That was a nice little trip down memory lane. There's so many others. I know I'm going to think of like a million more once we're done with this, but I'm looking forward to hearing what people have to say about their favorites, because that's definitely going to bring back some memories. But yeah, that was a good time. I think we had a good mix there from a couple different decades. And you need to look up electric football. And you'd be like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. How did you play this?
I'm definitely going to look that up.
Yeah. All right, guys. That's going to do it. Thanks for listening. That's our Podium picks this week, presented by Working Against Gravity.